Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be talking about how the start of Early Access Season 3 has been going, discussing learning the Ranger class, and also have a brief talk at the end about Longsword Fighter. Let me start by saying this wipe is already a massive success. We've seen a huge influx of players, better balance patches, and more content. But in my Season 2 review video, I listed out a bunch of changes I would like to see for this season, so I thought it would be fun to look back and see which of my suggestions were actually implemented. First, I asked for the ruins to be brought back. Ironmace confirmed that this is pushed until next wipe due to them focusing on the arena. And the arena is a whole can of worms that I don't want to dive into, but on a surface level, I'll just say that I'm worried about splitting the player base too much. Secondly, I wanted the Ice Abyss, which we got, and it's really great. The only issue I have with it is the ice caverns just suck. There's no points of interest. Not really anything to do on that map, in my opinion, other than quest. And I am not interested in sniping people to kill the wyvern, so that's just content that I can't do. The next thing I asked for was Druid, which also came out, and I think it's maybe their most successful class launch. It's very fun, high skill expression, multiple builds, so just, overall great class release. It was a bit broken when they first released it, but they nerfed it pretty quickly, so can't complain too much. Fourth, I asked about releasing on Epic and Steam, which both happened. The only interesting thing to mention there really is that the Steam review bombing pretty much led to the gear score normals we have now, at least in my opinion. But, overall, the more people that are playing the game, the better. Fifth, I was hoping they could close the gear gap a bit, and I would say the balance changes between seasons were pretty solid and achieved that goal. They brought down the amount of damage you could build and gave everyone more health. So I think the time to kill other players is in a great spot right now. For the sixth suggestion, I was hoping they would announce season rewards earlier, preferably at the start of the wipe. And they are not announced yet, so who knows when they'll announce them. For the seventh suggestion, I was hoping they would keep the AP entrance fees and calculations the same for the whole season. So this one they definitely did not do. There was a few days where they tried out a new AP system that made it so Treasure did not give you any AP, and what it ended up doing is basically made everyone just play different characters for a few days because no one could get AP anymore. They couldn't maintain their ranks past Voyager. So again, as far as I'm concerned, kind of killed the integrity of the HR leaderboards, but it's also not technically a display of skill, so not that big of a deal. Eighth, I was hoping they would make rewards based off peak rank. They haven't announced this yet, so maybe they could announce it at the end of the wipe, but for now I'll just leave it red and say they haven't announced it. And then lastly, I was hoping they'd use the test server more to test more changes and prevent major bugs, and it hasn't been updated once this wipe, as far as I'm concerned. So they implemented 4/9 of my suggestions, and I think they picked the most important ones to push out. The big thing I'm looking at now is what do we need to change about High Roller to incentivize more players to go there? How do we make the AP system skill-based? I'm not sure I have the answer, but I'm getting tired of the current grind, and what's ended up happening is that I generally find more or equally geared people in normal lobbies as I do in HR. The biggest kills I've gotten this whole wipe, in terms of monetary value, were from 125 plus lobbies in norms. And most of the people I fight in HR are either half kitted or naked. We've already seen a large drop off in player count since the start of the wipe, and I think this HR identity crisis is a major factor. Free to play players have a much harder time making goals due to market restrictions, yet their lobbies are filled with people up at crazy gear score levels just constantly. And you can't really blame them since, as I mentioned earlier, it's just a great way to find PvP and gear. But it ends up being at the cost of people that are also learning the game. It seems like no matter what approach Ironmace takes, there's a large portion of the player base that just wants to min-max a specific lobby type and then attempt to spawn rush Timmies. And my solution to that would be to really make HR worth going to. The current AP system is just not enough. That's enough talk about the season, though. I don't want to sound too critical, since I've really been enjoying this wipe. I started off playing longsword fighter, and I still play that character from time to time, but it's essentially just turned into my questing character. The class that I've really dove into and started maining is ranger. I'm definitely still learning the class and improving with every session, but man is this class fun. My favorite build for solos or duos is the survival bow forceful shot build. It lets you play up close in people's face, and if you build a lot of movement speed, you can kite while shooting someone forever. I've also tried out some different stuff with the longbow, like the shotgun build and some recurve builds, but generally I stick to the survival bow. Ranger also has an equalizer, similar to the longsword parry, which is, of course, the hunting trap. If you get to a high traffic area of the map before anyone else and can set down a few traps, you can really hold the room and get some free loot. Doesn't matter how geared the other player is, if you manage to bait someone onto a blue trap, they should be dead to rights. Playing as a zone controller has been a fun change of pace and really rewards map knowledge. So if you're an experienced player, I highly recommend giving this build a shot. The hardest matchup I've had with Ranger is Barbarian. If you don't get to inspect one in the lobby, and you're unsure whether or not they have Iron Will, I would say it's in your best interest to just run. The survival bow requires you to be in short to mid range, and Barbarians can easily close that gap with Rage, and if they have Achilles and Iron Will, then you are just dead to rights. Full PDR, Fighter, and Cleric can also be very annoying due to how many shots they take, but really, if you get in some trouble against them, you can generally just run and outpace them. The other big bummer for me about Ranger is that you can't really defend the gold piles in solo. Ranger is all about having space and kiting, so locking yourself in the close quarters room is a death sentence if the wrong person opens that door. This has led to me generally not killing the troll anymore, and I really only go there if I'm crashing someone. Lastly, I just want to touch on why I haven't been enjoying Longsword Fighter as much. The nerfs to sprint hit Longsword players harder than most fighter builds. This is because Longsword's speed penalty is too high and the on-hit slow is too low to really catch anyone in this movement speed meta. So that kind of leaves you with two choices. Run light gear and become a glass cannon, or just rely entirely on parries. The first option of going with light gear is usually what I try to do, but if you end up running into a full plate fighter or PDR Bard, PDR Barb, you will just get out-traded unless you double headshot riposte them. And even that's not enough against clerics these days. So option 2 of just relying on your parries heavily kind of sounds like a good idea until you fight a range class or even a rogue and you just get completely worked. So for solo play, I'll most likely actually playing Ranger for a bit. I'll definitely still play with Longsword with my duo and trio group and put out videos as I get enough content to do so, but I'll probably be focusing on Ranger for a bit. Anyways, I've done more than enough rambling for this video. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. And as always, take it easy.